The principle of sola fide, that's the second principle I want to talk about. Those two, I think, sola scriptura and sola fide, are really the pillars of Reformation teaching.
Sola fide is the heart of the gospel. If you reject sola fide, consciously or unconsciously, you can't be saved. That's Paul's argument in Romans, and that's his really tight argument in the book of Galatians. And he goes back to Abraham, and he goes back to Genesis 15:6 and says, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. Righteousness was imputed to Abraham because he believed. In Romans, he says that God justifies the ungodly by faith.
Yeah, amazing statement.
It doesn't say he justifies the godly, the people who do good. He justifies the ungodly by faith. And I've been saying in this series I've been doing on Galatians that a recent Pew survey of evangelicals yielded this, that 52% of contemporary evangelicals think salvation is by faith plus works. 52%. That's the majority of evangelicals think works play a role in salvation. That's another gospel. And Paul in Galatians says, if anybody preaches to you another gospel, let him be damned. Let him be anathema. Let him be cursed. And then in the third chapter of Galatians, he says, I can't believe that you've been bewitched. Who bewitched you? How can you be so foolish to be bewitched? I think the evangelical church in the world today is bewitched. I don't think they know the gospel. I really don't. I think there are people sitting in, sort of quasi-churches which preach a less than adequate gospel who are completely bewitched about the truth. Luther understood that if you don't have the true gospel, you don't have a church, and the church doesn't have a mission, doesn't have a message. So the salvation is by faith alone. We know that. Ephesians 2:8-9, by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourselves, the gift of God, not of works, explicitly not of works, which God has, before ordained that you should walk in them. Eventually you're going to do works as a result, but not as the means or the source. So, look, I'm convinced that those were the two main things in the Reformation, because the Roman system was about works. Yes, you have to believe in God, but it's all on your works. That will always be the lie that Satan fosters, because salvation is by faith alone. So the way you counter that is some system of works, some system of personal righteousness.